The corporate-controlled shills think that if they fawn over President Biden enough, we won't see reality.
Air raid sirens and no real guarantee of security.
As air raid sirens blared.
This was incredibly dramatic, Andrea. It was historic as well.
Historic, timely, and brave.
But Biden's trip to Ukraine was all theater anyway. Even a CNN senior national security correspondent admits no air sirens or explosions went off in Kyiv until Biden showed up. Meanwhile, former President Trump visited the ecological disaster in East Palestine with the transportation secretary on his heels, just weeks late. But don't bother asking Pete Buttigieg's press secretary about it. On-cam interviews are too aggressive.
I would like to do it without the camera on.
Can I ask why?
I think that is a little bit aggressive. That's why. And
why is it aggressive?
You're a press secretary, but can't go on cam? Federal, state, and local officials continue to insist that everything is just fine now in East Palestine, something most talking heads are happy to parrot. But even CNN has acknowledged residents worry rashes, headaches, and other symptoms might be tied to chemicals from the train crash. And Tucker actually interviews a resident.
Since then, I now have the chemical burns and reaction rash on my face, and my throat is getting irritated again and feeling very uneasy.
Washington Post begrudgingly reports that Texas A&M researchers contradict EPA reports, saying they found 9 air pollutants at levels that, if they persist, could raise long-term health concerns in and around East Palestine. But WAPO is sure to parrot the EPA's response that those levels pose no short-term risks and are likely to dissipate. But why shouldn't we believe them? Government agencies were so honest about the pandemic, right? Right? Oh, wait, the New York Times finally admits the truth about masks this week, just about 3 years too late. The headline reads, "The mask mandates did nothing. Will any lessons be learned?" Hopefully the lesson is not to trust your publication. The New York Times had no problem pushing the junk science before. Bill Maher drives the point home with his slaughter of fake news for downplaying natural immunity.
They did a giant study, 65 countries, or maybe something like 65 countries, many different studies. They looked at them all. Natural immunity, as good or better than the vaccine. Something I've been saying since the beginning, and I get called an anti-vaxxer. That's not an anti-vaxxer. This is the kind of thing, my problem with the media from both sides is not that you guys lie. It's that you tell me your side of the story that you want me to know. You don't tell me the whole story. I'd be curious as to how much play this story gets, because I remember reading that they did a study of Republicans versus Democrats. The question was, what percentage, this is like a year and a half ago, what percentage of people who get COVID require hospitalization? The answer is less than 1%. Almost half of Democrats thought it was over 50%. They listened to your network. Where do they get that kind of information?
And actor Woody Harrelson pokes fun at the idiocy of it all in his monologue on Saturday Night Live.
Okay, so the movie goes like this. The biggest drug cartels in the world get together and buy up all the media and all the politicians and force all the people in the world to stay locked in their homes, and people can only come out if they take the cartel's drugs and keep taking them over and over. I threw the script away. I mean, who is going to believe that crazy idea?
A WAPO columnist is forced to admit the hysteria over Elon Musk taking over Twitter was baloney. How Elon Musk fired Twitter staff and broke nothing. NPR, Fortune, and even Meghan McArdle's original article lambasted Elon Musk for his decision to cut half the staff. But in this week's article, McArdle eats her humble pie and writes, if Twitter can get by for months on a fraction of its staff, how many of those folks were actually necessary? Good question. But with the media eager to pounce on all things Elon, check out these headlines. Daily Mail, Tesla bringing HQ back to California 2 years after leaving. Or KTLA, Tesla HQ to return to California, Musk announces. Oh wow, so Texas was a bust? It's going back to Cali. Except it's not exactly. If you actually read the article, which most people don't, let's face it, it reads, the facility will serve as the company's engineering headquarters, while the corporate headquarters remains in Austin. Typical misleading headline. Speaking of Elon and his promise to bring free speech back to Twitter, the reason most of the propaganda puppets lost their minds against him in the first place, the Morning Joe program goes all in on its hatred of the First Amendment. Newsbusters points out host Joe Scarborough and New York Times editorial board member Mara Gay says free speech is out of date. And of course, free speech should only be reserved for reputable news organizations like theirs, not you dumb peons.
You know, Joe, you're making a powerful case here that the law maybe it just is out of date. I mean, listening to you talk about the way you were thinking about it when it was enacted is reason enough. You're right. The internet has changed. The world has changed. One of the reasons is we actually have a very broad First Amendment statute. And of course, as a journalist, that's a wonderful thing. The problem here is that the world has changed. And so to your point, Joe, now you have companies that are actually not journalistic organizations that are disseminating information, some of it factual, some of it dangerous.
And as long as we're talking about MSNBC, another host refuses to apologize for her blatant lie about education reforms in Florida. Fox News reports that host Andrea Mitchell made headlines when she asked VP Kamala Harris this question.
What does Governor Ron DeSantis not know about Black history and the Black experience when he says that slavery and the aftermath of slavery should not be taught to Florida school children?
I don't know what he knows and what he doesn't know. But
when called out for this mischaracterization, DeSantis' press secretary Brian Griffin shared an excerpt of a press release on Twitter declaring there will be no consideration of anything related to NBC Universal or its affiliates until and at least Andrea Mitchell corrects the blatant lie she made about the governor. So she apologized, right? Not exactly. Mitchell offered a postscript to her show on Wednesday, saying,
I was imprecise in summarizing Governor DeSantis' position about teaching slavery in schools.
DeSantis' deputy press secretary, Jeremy Redfern, tweeted, saying one was imprecise when what they said was a blatant lie is not an apology. MSNBC, NBC News should not be viewed as an objective media organization. Stop letting the corporate media be the gatekeepers of truth. I couldn't agree more. Bringing you what's ignored, sensationalized, misleading, or just plain false, that's your Media Malfeasance for the week. To help me keep exposing the propaganda puppets, subscribe on Locals at ChristyLeeTV.locals.com or stay connected at KLIM.news.